The Mail were happy to jump on the bandwagon. Harry and Meghan tried to destroy your career.
The degradation of Prince William and Catherine this week has been quite appalling.
Did Prince Harry just get accused of pulling the strings behind a press barrage on William and Catherine? That's the claim sparking outrage this week. And before any official word lands, one thing is already crystal clear. If there's one line Harry is certain to draw, it's this: he will deny it. Loudly, firmly, and he'll challenge anyone to prove otherwise, because tying him to a tabloid's campaign against William and Kate is the one charge that explodes every nerve at once: family, reputation, and the old wound he swore he'd never reopen. Here's what's really happening. A newspaper that once cheered the heir and his wife has pivoted to scolding them in print. Vacations questioned, engagements counted, parenting choices mocked, even Catherine's time at home with the children thrown into the dock.
William and Catherine have access via social media, but the Mail does like to punish. If they think it's going to make them money, they will go out of their way to lie about you.
To the public, it feels like a sudden gust of hostility. To people who've watched the press long enough, it looks like a power play. The striking part isn't that columnists sharpened their knives, it's that they all swung at the same targets in the same week with the same talking points. That's not journalism discovering news, that's pressure being applied.
Try to push you off the cliff,
Yes.
even though they had no justification and it was not morally right.
The allegation on the table is blunt. The paper hammers William and Catherine while buttering up Harry and Meghan because of a live lawsuit and a hunt for leverage. The story being whispered is that kinder coverage of the Sussexes might soften a courtroom battle, or at least keep certain doors ajar. And if that's the game, the easiest way to keep heat on the air is to paint him as thin-skinned, lazy, or hiding behind privacy. It's tidy, it's cynical, and it lands right where William is most protective: his wife, his kids, his home. But drag Harry into that blueprint as the secret architect, that's where the theory falls apart for one simple reason. However bruised, however distant, the brothers share a rule. When it comes to their children and their wives, there is a line. Harry's expected denial isn't about guarding some PR strategy. It's about refusing to be cast as the man who points a tabloid cannon at Kate. He will reject it because it makes him look like a saboteur of the very family duty he spent years claiming as his moral high ground: protect your own. Let's rewind to the spark. The paper's big voices rolled out a narrative. William skips too much, holidays too often, hides behind quality over quantity, and Catherine, the mother the public admires, is framed as absent, fragile, or overprotected. Even their move to a proper family base, Forest Lodge on the Windsor estate, gets twisted into a symbol of indulgence. 8 bedrooms becomes 8 sins. Privacy becomes guilt. Forever home becomes evidence of retreat. That angle isn't new. It's the old tabloid trick of turning a family decision into a political act. If they can't find scandal, they'll manufacture stakes. Now pull back the camera. Why this now? The press loves a triangle: palace, paper, public. When one paper senses it's not the favored messenger, when scoops land with a rival, when access is limited, when courtiers stop returning calls, the tone changes. A crown's friendship is currency, and when that currency flows elsewhere, the bill arrives with interest. Add to that a courtroom storm cloud connected to Harry, and the temptation is obvious: praise one side, pummel the other, and keep both lines open. As a tactic, it's ruthless. As a long-term strategy, it underestimates 2 things: William's patience and the public's sense of fairness, because there is a truth the country understands in its bones. Catherine is a mother of 3 who walked through a health crisis with grace. William is a father who chose to be present when it mattered most. That's not a scandal, that's a standard. For a paper that built its brand on kitchen table values to turn and wag a finger at a mother for staying home with her young children is not just tone deaf, it's a betrayal of its own readers. You can practically hear them mutter, "Since when did being a hands-on parent become a crime?" Here's where the alleged plotline with Harry gets flimsy. Of course he benefits when the paper takes a lighter tone on him and Meghan. Of course he knows how fast those winds shift. He's seen the headlines flip before breakfast plenty of times. But to suggest he's orchestrating a battering ram aimed at William and Kate is to ignore both his public posture and his personal pattern. He tends to swing at institutions, systems, tabloids, shadowy briefings, not at Catherine, not at the kids, and not at a brother he still insists he wants someday to reconcile with. However unlikely that feels, he's expected to deny because he must deny. Even a hint of collusion would detonate whatever fragile moral high ground he claims. Meanwhile, William's response has been almost painfully unmodern. No public tantrum, no frothy statement, no pit-stop briefing in a reporter's ear. He keeps moving. He shows up where he says he will, clears the diary when family needs him, and lets the noise exhaust itself. That restraint has teeth. It says, "You don't own me." It says, "We will set the pace, not you." And it leans on something the old press machine hates to admit. Royals no longer need ink to speak to people. One post, a short video, a quiet clip of Catherine visiting a children's unit or William at a hospice, and the public sees the story with their own eyes. No chaperone required. The Forest Lodge outrage is a case study. Strip the drama and it's simple. The family needed a base that works. Adelaide Cottage was charming but cramped, fine for a short stint, awful for a life with growing kids and a working household. Forest Lodge is within the Windsor estate, not a gilded fortress miles away. It gives the children a childhood with room to breathe and lets their parents host, work, and rest like human beings. The panic about palaces is theater. Buckingham Palace is an office and a stage for statecraft. Living day to day inside a museum isn't romance, it's chaos. In a modern monarchy, you separate the symbolic from the domestic. That's not slacking, that's sanity. And then there's the mother of all misreads, counting engagements like tally marks in a factory ledger. Quantity was never the only measure of service, and everyone knows it. A morning where Catherine sits with a cancer patient quietly, off camera, is not less valuable than 5 ribbon cuttings with a flashbulb chorus. William's mantra, quality over quantity, grates on people who live by daily metrics because it refuses to perform busyness for headlines. It's not lazy, it's disciplined. It trusts the work to speak for itself over time. Still, the press loves a villain. If William and Catherine won't give them soap opera, they'll be written as cold, private, withholding. Enter the accusation. Somewhere, somehow, Harry must be smiling. No, he isn't. Not at this. He knows exactly how quickly today's gentle treatment can become tomorrow's bonfire. He knows that letting a paper frame him as the beneficiary of attacks on Kate is poison. If there's one consistent reflex he has, it's to swat away any story that makes him look like the man behind the curtain. Expect a denial. Expect the language to be clipped, almost legalistic. Expect phrases like categorically untrue, no involvement, no coordination. Expect an insistence that whatever the paper is doing, it's not at his instruction, not at his request, and not in his interest. Where does that leave William and Catherine? Oddly, in a stronger position than the headlines suggest. The louder the paper pushes them into a villain's cape, the more ordinary people push back. Even critics balk at shaming a mother for prioritizing her kids after a medical ordeal. Even cynics see through the gotcha of counting holidays after a decade of relentless service and public scrutiny. The Wales' brand has never been noise. It's steadiness, it's showing up again and again without spectacle. That kind of trust doesn't evaporate because a columnist got a memo. And what of the media war most viewers don't see? The rivalry under the headlines. Competing newsrooms vie for royal scoops, for proximity, for the priceless image of being in the know. When one outlet becomes the favored channel for an announcement or a defense, the other grows restless. That tension bleeds onto the page. Readers are asked to pick sides in a duel they never asked to join. But families are not prizes, and their homes are not tokens on a newsroom chessboard. William and Catherine learned that the hard way years ago, and they built high walls for a reason. The more the machine pounds those walls, the more the public hears the echo and wonders, why are you so desperate to get in? There's a quieter story beneath all this that matters more than column inches. A future king and queen chose a life that doesn't make for daily cliffhangers. They made the boring choice. School runs, hospital corridors, dinners around a table instead of podiums every night. That's not romantic, but it is recognizably human. And when the press tries to turn that into a scandal, they overplay their hand. Because the country's center of gravity, ordinary people with ordinary worries, recognize themselves in the family at the end of the lane. They're not moved by snark about an 8-bedroom house they'll never see. They're moved by whether the children inside it are safe and loved. So here's how this likely plays out. The paper will keep testing lines, because that's what it does when it wants obedience or attention. More columns, more questions, more faux concern. William will keep ignoring the bait. Catherine will keep working in the precise, controlled way she always has. The family will appear in public when it matters, and vanish when it doesn't. The rival paper will run friendly exclusives that make the first paper seethe. And somewhere in the mix, a statement will drop from Harry's side that slams the door on the accusation and dares anyone to produce receipts. He's expected to deny because there's no upside to letting this hang. He'll want clear water between himself and the idea that he's using a tabloid cudgel against William and Kate. Will the denial end the noise? For a day? Maybe 2. But the deeper shift won't come from a press release or a clapback headline. It will come from the audience refusing to swallow a narrative that treats parenthood as a PR sin and recovery as a weakness. It will come from readers who remember the paper's own values and wonder when it became a crime to be a present father or a careful mother. And it will come from the patience of 2 people who know the job is a marathon, not a daily scoreboard. There's a detail the hot takes miss. The monarchy survives not because it is glossy, but because, at its best, it mirrors the country back to itself at a human scale. Births, marriages, illness, recovery, grief, duty. This year gave the Waleses more than enough of that human story. If a newspaper wants to turn that into a punchline, it tells you more about the paper than it does about the family. And in the long run, audiences drift toward voices that feel fair, familiar, and sane. That's the quiet advantage William and Catherine hold. You can't fake it for long. So no, the idea of Harry whispering orders into a newsroom ear so they'll rough up William and Kate doesn't scan. He has his own fights, his own cases, his own battles with the very industry now being speculated as his sidearm. He's expected to deny because the accusation undermines his own crusade. And if he has any instinct for self-preservation left, and he does, he'll shut it down hard. This leaves us with a standoff. On one side, a paper flexing to prove it still rules the royal narrative. On the other, a family determined to live a life that doesn't need constant validation or applause. In the middle, a brother who, whatever else you think of him, won't accept being cast as the villain in a story about attacking the mother of his niece and nephews. The old rules said the paper always wins. The new reality says not if the public decides otherwise. Watch what happens next. Not in the headlines that bark for a day, but in the silences that follow. Watch how often William and Catherine keep their schedule calm and their message simple. Watch whether readers reward decency over drama. And watch for a short, clipped denial from Harry's corner, the kind that drops like a gavel. No, he's not behind any mail attacks on William and Kate. No, he's not anyone's secret source. No, he's not playing puppet master. In the end, the lasting story won't be a columnist jab. It will be that a future king and queen chose to raise their children with a little space, and a big paper tried to punish them for it. It will be that a brother refused to be framed as the architect of a hit on his sister-in-law. And it will be that the country, weary of noise, recognized the difference between a headline and a home. If you've been told William should bow to a newsroom or Catherine should apologize for being a mother, ask yourself who benefits when families are shamed for being families. Then ask yourself who loses when the public stops playing along. Because that's where this is heading. The press can posture, the palace can hold its line, but only the public can decide which story sticks. And right now, the story that sticks is simple. Dignity outlasts drama. Always has, always will. And there's another layer. The quick takes keep skipping. Influence in the royal press ecosystem doesn't flow only from headlines to readers. It flows from readers back to editors, and from editors to courtiers, and from courtiers to calendars. When a paper gambles on a harsh line and the audience resists, the calendar doesn't bend to the newsroom. The newsroom quietly adjusts to the calendar. That's why the most effective response to a paper's pressure isn't a blistering statement. It's a month of normal work that lands well. It's a visit that warms even cynical hearts. It's a photograph that looks unguarded and human without feeling staged. Those moments do something commentary can't. They remind people why they liked the couple in the first place. Consider the rhythm the Wales have cultivated. High-intensity public days, then silence. A few carefully chosen appearances, then nothing. Not because there's nothing happening, but because not everything should happen in front of us. That quiet protects children from growing up in a world where every breakfast is content and every bedtime is commentary. It also starves the outrage cycle of oxygen. You can't whip up fresh indignation if the targets won't perform for you on cue. That restraint looks old-fashioned in a hyper-posting era, and that's exactly why it still works. It signals confidence. It says, we're not auditioning for your approval. We'll see you when it matters. Now look again at the accusation tying Harry to the paper's pivot. The logic asks you to believe a man who has built years of messaging around press harm would suddenly act as a shadow advisor to the very machine he says wounded him. That contradiction isn't clever strategy. It's a character break. He knows it. His team knows it. So when the denial arrives, as it almost certainly will, expect it to be brief, unemotional, and designed to move the conversation on. That's the mark of a statement written to close a door, not invite another week of debate. If you want to understand why this story has such pull, zoom out to the values underneath. Family, duty, privacy, fairness. People disagree about royals all the time, but they tend to agree on this. Parents caring for their kids shouldn't be treated as dereliction. Spouses caring for each other during illness shouldn't be framed as indulgence. Homes chosen for safety shouldn't be painted as palaces chosen for ego. When coverage crosses that line, it grates. Not because readers are royalists or Republicans, but because they're human. They know what it costs to steer a family through a hard year without letting the outside world eat you alive. There's also a generational truth humming in the background. The old compact between tabloids and the palace relied on two assumptions: that the paper could make or break reputations at will, and that the royal household would play along to secure benign treatment. Both assumptions are wobbling. Digital audiences don't need a paper to interpret a hospital corridor hug or a school gate grin. They see it themselves. They form opinions in real time, often kinder than the headline writers expect. And the household has learned that access traded for flattery is a bill that always comes due. Better to keep boundaries, accept a few rough weeks in print, and let the long view win. Still, temptation is real for every camp. For editors, the lure is to goose numbers with a hard smack at the biggest characters in national life. For courtiers, the lure is to feed a friendly line here and there to quiet a storm. For rivals, the lure is to plant flags on stories the other side wants. That merry-go-round will keep spinning. The question is whether the core players hold their nerve. William can. Catherine can. They've already shown it. The audience's memory is longer than the outrage cycle thinks. It remembers the steady years. It remembers the low drama. It remembers kindness without microphones. There's a point about home that deserves to be said plainly. A family base isn't a press release. It's a decision about where children will spill cereal, where arguments will end, where birthdays will be whispered about, where exhaustion will finally break into sleep. You don't choose that with a front page in mind. You choose it because the doors close just right, and the trees outside soak up the noise, and the staff can do their work without stepping over backpacks in hallways. Forest Lodge is not a crown snub to marble halls. It's a father and mother choosing a place that works. If that sounds boring, good. Boring is often the bravest choice a public family can make. If you're wondering where Lady Colin Campbell fits as this rolls on, think of her as an accelerant, not the fire. Her commentary travels because it's sharp and provocative. It frames the story in a way that makes for combustible television. But once the spark is lit, the fuel is always the same: the paper's appetite, the public's tolerance, and the couple's response. In that triangle, the loudest voice doesn't always win. The most consistent one does. William and Catherine's consistency is their superpower. And yes, Harry's denial when it lands will be part of that consistency too, because it aligns with his stated creed even if you don't share it. Another misread: the idea that criticizing the couple's quantity of work will turn traditional-minded readers against them. In truth, those readers often prize duty and home in the same breath. They know that duty without home corrodes the soul, and home without duty shrinks it. When William says quality over quantity, what he's really saying is, I won't treat service like a punch card. I'll treat it like a calling. That line resonates more than the critics expect, especially with people who have learned the hard way that doing a thing well sometimes means doing fewer things with your whole heart. Will the paper pivot back? Probably. Eventually. News cycles wear out. Publics tire of being asked to boo people they like. Rival scoops embarrass. Editors recalibrate. When that day comes, it won't be because a tweet went viral. It'll be because the story stopped paying. Outrage is a product. If it stops moving, it gets pulled from the shelf. That's another reason to expect a clean, clipped denial from Harry's side. It reduces friction. It reminds the audience there's no smoking gun. It leaves the paper holding a hot potato with fewer places to toss it. It's worth saying out loud that sympathy for Catherine is not a PR strategy. It's a human response to someone walking through a season no one would choose. Even those who don't follow the royals closely felt the gut punch of her diagnosis. They understood the whispering around school gates, the careful smiles, the days when sunlight felt too sharp. To take that and call it an opportunity to score a page view jab is, well, it's a choice. But it's a choice that backfires over time, because audiences have a nose for meanness dressed up as concern. They can tell when criticism is about standards, and when it's about scoring points. And let's deal with the engagement count scoreboard one more time, because it keeps creeping back into columns like a broken record. There are seasons in public life. Some years erupt with ribbon cuttings, tours, and speeches. Some years are heavier on private briefings, sensitive visits, and unglamorous grind. The job is the sum, not the slice. If you measure vocation by a single number across a single quarter, you'll always be able to write a hot take. You'll rarely be able to write a fair one. What happens if the paper doubles down instead of easing off? The playbook is predictable. More questions, more concerns, more anonymous whispers about palace insiders. The counter is equally predictable and much more effective. Keep steady, keep present, keep kind. When kindness meets a sneer, the sneer ages badly. History has a shelf for those columns, and it labels them with a shrug. And then there's the part that should make everyone take a breath: the children. The public will tolerate many sins from institutions. Turning kids into props in a blame game isn't one of them. Every time a headline nudges that line, hinting that a mother's protection is somehow suspect, it risks hardening the audience against the outlet, not the family. People will forgive a lot. Targeting a mother for being a mother is not on the list. So circle back to the original question. Did Harry secretly benefit from a tabloid shift while William and Kate took the heat? Maybe in the narrow sense that a few covers went down more smoothly. But did he plot it? Is he the hidden hand? That's the claim he's expected to deny, and deny flatly. Because once you're cast as the man who waves a tabloid baton at your own sister-in-law, you can't outrun that shadow. He knows it. He'll shut it down. In the end, the story that endures will be smaller and better than the one blazing across headlines. A couple chose quiet strength over daily theater. A father refused to let his children grow up as characters on a front page. A mother walked through the valley and kept her dignity. A brother, however distant, declined to be written as the villain in their home. And an audience older than the outrage machine, wiser than the slogans, chose to believe what it saw with its own eyes. If that sounds simple, good. Simplicity is underrated. It outlasts noise. It sticks when the feed scrolls on. And it's why this particular storm, loud as it is, will likely pass with the Wales' center intact and the public none the poorer for having ignored a few breathless takes. The tabloids will write another thunderclap tomorrow. The family will eat dinner tonight. That contrast tells you everything you need to know about who's really in control. So watch for the denial. It will be short. It will be calm. It will be final. Then watch what matters more. Small hands waving at a school gate, a quiet smile in a hospital ward, a couple walking out of a side door into cold air after a long day. No cameras, no script, just life. That's where reputations are made for good. Not on a front page, but at a kitchen table. And no column, not today, not tomorrow, can compete with that.